I'm Ross Rosenberg. Welcome to my latest YouTube video and podcast. My last video I did was on pathological loneliness. And as a quick review, that is an existential disease that is common for the disorder known as SLDD or self-love deficit disorder. And if you follow me, you know that is a replacement term for codependency, as it is as a withdrawal symptom of the addiction, or what I call SLDD addiction. And for more information, please go back to that video or see other videos that I've made on pathological loneliness and self-love deficit disorder. The trauma technique that I developed starting at the very beginning of my career, probably around 30 years ago. I call it the Healing the Inner Trauma Child Trauma Integration Method or Treatment Technique, or short, the HITCH technique. The HITCH technique is similar to some of the more advanced trauma integration techniques out there that Peter Levine talked about, Besser van der Kolk, but it was developed independently from their work. In fact, it was developed in the late 80s or early 90s just by accident, when none of them had any information out there, and there was nothing out there to guide me in my discoveries. As a new therapist, I happened to accidentally open up a door that led me into a person's, what we used to call repressed memories, or now, as we know, dissociated memories that are stored offline in the part of our brain that, just for the purposes of evolution and survival, protects us by taking highly traumatic memories, moves them offline so we can't remember them, but makes the emotions connected to them accessible for survival purposes. And that's how we understand what post-traumatic stress disorder is. And for those who follow me and my explanation of self-love deficit disorder, that is where the memories of the abuse and the harm and the neglect that created a person's self-love deficit disorder are housed. So people who are SLDD, they do not have memories of the attachment trauma when they suffered grievously at the hands of their pathologically narcissistic parent, and whose codependent parent could not protect them or counter its harm. The harm of growing up in an environment where you're supposed to be unconditionally loved, respected, cared for, trusted, and protected morphs into a danger zone where that the only way that you're going to be safe from the narcissistic parent is to learn to morph yourself into the good child, the trophy child, the pleasing child, or the invisible child, or some other version of a little human being who can somehow transform their very human needs of being nurtured and cared for. The attachment process into a way to care for the narcissist in order to get the best type of care, or to mitigate the harm that would come if they didn't. So the resulting attachment trauma is absolutely psychologically disfiguring. And if you did figure out a way to cope, to mold yourself, to become the ego extension of the narcissist, or the invisible child who can avoid the harm, it's likely you are going to grow up and as an adult to be codependent or be self-love deficient. And I explain that book in my Codependency Revolution book and my other books, including the Human Magnet Syndrome book. So you probably know by now that I created what I call my self-love recovery treatment program, which is a program that has individual stages that you have to complete in order to finally overcome, neutralize self-love deficit disorder, and then become self-love abundant, which is the cure. Because pathological loneliness is an incredibly important element of the healing process, I had to figure out a way to help my clients struggle through pathological loneliness, because remember, it's a withdrawal symptom. It's inevitable that they are going to either break up or divorce the pathological narcissist while working with me. And I'm sorry to say that. If we look at the pathological narcissist, they have a personality disorder. And we look at the SLD, they are locked in through the human magnet syndrome and the dance where they just somehow feel like they can never leave it. They believe they can't leave it. They don't want to leave it because the fear of loneliness, the fear of the withdrawal symptom, the pathological loneliness is so profound. It motivates the SLD to do anything they can to avoid protecting themselves and eventually leaving. But when they do start my treatment program, my self-love recovery treatment program, we go through each step sequentially so that by the time they get healthier and are able to set boundaries with the narcissist, they are not besieged by all of the gaslit shame, the manipulation, the coercion, the triangulation, the child alienation. And that is why my program is sequential and every stage builds upon the other. But the pathological loneliness is the first huge hurdle in this program, and we address it by stage 3, and which is the stage connected to pathological loneliness. But it has to be extinguished. It has to be neutralized if they're going to move into the part of the program where they're finally going to develop a plan to find themselves, to speak for themselves, to lay claim to the territory, the real estate, the emotional, personal real estate of their worth. They're not going to be silenced. Because of the preparation for the pathological loneliness, they are no longer going to be dealt a debilitating blow of sadness, depression, and loneliness that's going to keep them from going into the future of self-love abundance. So I've used this HITCH method, my Healing the Inner Trauma Child treatment technique, to specifically get my SLDs through this terrible withdrawal syndrome. Think about it. If you're an alcoholic, or for that matter, a heroin addict or a nicotine addict, cigarettes, you are going to go through withdrawals. It's impossible to skip. You cannot go through it without some level of pain. My SLDs know that, and they're prepared for it. They understand it intellectually, and I prepare them emotionally. But more than preparing them emotionally, I help them connect to the memories of the child they used to be, who was so lonely, who was so sad, who was so trapped in a world in which love, respect, caring, nurturing was absent. The only love they could get were breadcrumbs that they had to work hard to collect. And sometimes they were just not enough to give them any long-lasting positive feelings about themselves and their lives. In preparation for the stage in which they set boundaries with the narcissist, which is setting boundaries in a hostile environment, they are preparing for the loneliness that they know that in the past has kept them either in the relationship once they try to leave, or from hopping back into another relationship with a narcissist because the loneliness just was too profoundly difficult to manage. So with my HITCH method, I bring people back, analogous to hypnosis, but it's not hypnosis. I bring them back into time, back to when they were a child, back to the memories of the emotions of being the child. And I call these affective emotions. I safely guide them one step at a time through my HITCH method, which, by the way, this video is not, it does not contain information on how to do the HITCH method. But I bring them back to the memory of what it was like to be scared, to be alone, to be afraid of the world that should not have been so frightening. I help them identify, picture, and feel the version of the child they were when they were the loneliest. Whether I ask them to close their eyes and tell me about a memory of extreme loneliness, I ask them to bring a picture to session of a time when they were lonely, or I ask them to ask a sibling who is safe or someone that they knew who could give them an accurate explanation, an accurate description of what they were like when they were a child. Through these cues, through these memory cues, through these questions, I asked them to picture the lonely child. It is like the brain has its own internal computer system that always watches how to keep safe. And that is not conscious. That is all done behind the scenes. So the brain avoids system overload. It avoids blowing a fuse, or better yet, a system crash. And here is a fuse blowing, a 4-amp fuse, which means that if the electricity, and I don't know much about electricity, so I'm going to pretend I'm right. If 5 amps of electricity gets thrown in there, it's going to blow because it could only handle 4. And should you try this yourself, which is the purpose of the video, is to try to imagine you in your home at the loneliest moment of your childhood. And picture the child's face. Picture your face during that loneliness. And then find the part of your body that feels the sensation, which is often pain, heaviness, ache, burning. It could be in your throat, it can be in your heart, your solar plexus. But find where your body is saying those memories are. And as you keep the picture of that child's sad, lonely face in your mind, start to focus on where and in the body you feel the sensations, the pain, and focus just only and completely on the physical sensation. And once you really can wrap your arms around what it feels like in this moment in your body, I want you to return back to the picture in your mind, or maybe the picture you have in front of you of that lonely child. Look at her or his. Look at her eyes, her face. Because when people are lonely, children especially, their face shows pain. Perhaps it's indifference, perhaps it's numb, but look at the child's face. Feel the child's loneliness in your body. Make the connection between the feeling in your body, the loneliness, and the child's face. And be with that child. Put yourself in the memory. Imagine yourself in the same room with this child. Should the child be unsafe, or should the memory be one that should the memory be one that is when the child was unsafe? In your mind's eye is bring yourself into that memory. Take that child's hand, pick him up, and bring her into another room. And then sit her down and just look at her and tell her it's okay. You're feeling the loneliness. You're feeling the experience in your body. That pain of loneliness is now represented in that defenseless little girl's face. By the way, she could be 12 or 14, and of course, a boy. But you are there with her. You are feeling her inside, and she's real. And her loneliness, her deep, stinging, painful, heart-wrenching loneliness is alive in your body, and you are with her. It's not hard to do, because in this moment you are with that little girl, and you intuitively make the decision to give her attention, to give her comfort. So you make that decision, which could include picking her up and putting her in your lap, holding her hand, stroking her face, because she recognizes you. She knows you are the adult that she is to become, and you are holding the pain of that pathological loneliness, which she has lived through, that now in this moment, you both feel and you are proving to her that she's not alone. It's very real. And you don't lose sight of her face, her body, her little hands, or whatever is a part of the manifestation, this wonderful experience. She knows you are the adult that she will become. She knows that she has been hidden away from you and has been silenced for decades. She knows the world is not safe, but she is open to you and what you have to say. You feel it in your body. You see it. She is real and you're real. And she needs to know that this loneliness, the despair, there's a light out there. There's a spark of something. Because up to that moment, her pain was so bad, she had to disappear almost for an eternity. In this moment of feeling the loneliness with her and knowing that she needs an adult to comfort her, you ask her if it's okay, if you can hug her. And she might say no, or she might smile and say yes. But you are in a relationship that is so real. She's real. You feel her. You see her. The memories of her are alive and burning because she is there. She is a manifestation of everything that was too painful for you to remember. She is the living example in memory form of your loneliness. The dark, pathological loneliness was represented in her face when you saw her. But she, you, both of you have been frozen in time. You have never been able to escape the cold, concrete, fortified walls of numb, disconnected safety. You connected your pathological loneliness with the memory of where it began. You are with that girl who froze in time, who couldn't handle the pain anymore and had to disappear. You are with her and she's with you, and she has never felt more safe, and you are living that part of your life and giving yourself safety and love and tenderness by the way you are with her. As you hug her, you can feel her little arms wrap around you. And again, I encourage you to be creative because this is just one scenario. It could be different. You could be holding hands, or you can just be looking at each other, but she is soaking up the love that you are giving her because you brought her out of the frozen tundra of your disconnected, disassociated memory. She is alive with a spark in her eye, a twinkle in her smile. She is from the past that was never, ever to be revealed. And now someone can accept the pain of her existence. I used my HITCH method and was able to return her to that child she was and get her connected to the memories. And then as a result of that, there was integration, and this was the next time I talked to her. So let's talk about what I did in order to get her there. To understand, and before I explain HITCH, I want to say that the brain does everything to sabotage it. That I am working against the brain's rudimentary protective mechanisms, and it doesn't want me there. It's not happy. The trauma, T, scares the conscious brain from seeking help. Your brain avoids talking about your attachment trauma. It's not that you're in denial. There's a part of you unconsciously that doesn't want you to do it. And it's a very simple mechanism, and it doesn't have insight. It scares the conscious brain from seeking help. It's like an addiction. It sabotages help. The brain that needs heroin, it monitors blood levels, and when there's not enough of that opioid in the blood, it triggers other parts of the brain to get it, and it shuts down our logic, our need for our safety. That is why SLDD is an addiction. Remember, pathological loneliness is an existential disease, a disease of feeling like you don't exist in your own life, like you are emotionally dead inside, or feeling the stinging pain of not having anyone love you, no matter what you do. You found a way back to that person you were. She has always needed you to find her and to look at her and to touch her and to give her hope to remember, so that she can trust that you can feel the loneliness that she thought she couldn't survive and find a way out. So you tell her, you promise her what you can do. And because this is like a guided visualization, and you're not in the presence of a therapist like myself, you cannot promise her what you cannot deliver. And if all you can deliver right now is just the acknowledgement of seeing her and being strong enough to absorb the pain and understand that she needs you to embrace it and to live with it and to believe that there's a way out, to give her permission to wake up from her frozen, self-obliterated state, to hope that she might be loved just for who she is. And in this moment, you are with her. You are communicating through touch, through word, through facial expression, that she is lovable just for who she is, and that you will take care of her. You don't have to tell her exactly what you're going to do, because you might not know it. But if you are committed to this self-love recovery and committed to dealing with the pain of the total existence, the pain of escaping self-love deficiency, SLDD, and you're in therapy, you are working with someone who understands trauma, you can promise her, you can promise that sweet little girl that there is hope. And if you're not working with a therapist because there's not one that's available, or you can't afford one, you can promise her, but the hope is based upon what you can do in order to keep yourself safe in your life that is filled with the tyranny of SLDD, narcissistic abuse, gaslighting. You cannot promise her what you can't deliver. So maybe the very best you can do is just to promise her that you will think of her and keep working on a way to find a safe escape into a life where she doesn't have to be frozen anymore, and you don't have to be besieged and flattened by the fear and the experience of pathological loneliness, or the sacrifice, the ultimate sacrifice of living a life psychologically impaired and dead as an SLD, never knowing what self-love is about, and forever being crushed to the ground because of the ego needs of the narcissist. You're with this little girl in this moment of time, and she has never been more happy in her life because she is not afraid. She is not looking towards the frozen tundra of her incarcerated life, the frozen captivity of a life that barely begun. You've told her, you've given yourself permission to feel the pain, because you're able to find a way out of it. In this process, as you increasingly make that little girl feel more safe, and you increasingly give her a chance to just be a little girl, and you clearly tell her in the promises what you will do, which just could be to think of escaping one day and not forget of the importance of protecting both of you. she is going to be given permission to frolic in the summertime of perpetual happiness, the childhood that she never had. She is no longer going to be so scared and so crushed into this frozen, coal-like existence, into the netherworlds of forgotten past. You brought her alive. You connected yourself to a part of the very essence of the loneliness that is impossible for you to endure. You made your pathological loneliness real by going to the source of it and understanding that the reason you can't deal with it, it is so debilitating and it keeps you from leaving your narcissist, or it actually keeps you inside this relationship with ever thinking of leaving, is because you got to the source of it. That's the loneliness you feel in that little girl's face. And you made that little girl believe that she exists, that she doesn't hide, and she can depend on an adult for the first time to give her life. You're not giving her promises that you can't deliver. You are just letting her know that she is special. You see her, and she doesn't have to be forgotten by the world and by herself. And that you in this loneliness will be reminded of her and your pain and your suffering and your need to go back to the narcissist. You're going to picture her and the memory of you two being one, the integrated experience of a life of pain. You are going to be the adult who's going to fulfill the promise that you are about to make with the little girl in the closure of this exercise. When you feel this experience is complete and that little girl trusts you and opens up in a way that gives her some form of relief, you're going to promise her something. And you're going to write this down. You're going to write it down as you promise her. You're going to write it down after this exercise. And whatever you promise her, it has to be some level of protection. It could be you will remember her, you will remember both of you, and the promise that you are going to come up with a plan to escape. But in the meantime, when you connect to pathological loneliness, you will feel her and the part of your body that you originally identified, for which there was a connection to that little frozen girl. You are going to promise her that when you feel lonely or you feel her in your body, you are going to remember her. You're going to remember the promise, and you are going to be alive in the moment without having to disappear, evaporate, or through hopelessness and crushing discouragement, fall prey to the carnivorous jaws of pathological loneliness. So you'll make that promise, and you will let her know that when you feel her in your body, when you feel the loneliness and you will remember that sweet, beautiful little face that she is showing you, that is beaming straight at you. And you're going to fulfill the promise, no matter how little that step forward is. And then you will hug her and you will say goodbye. She won't be afraid because she woke up from hell and now has a reason to play in the back of your mind, because she now knows someone loves her and has promised to take care of her. That is what all children have if they have good attachment. You made the promise and you've connected yourself to that little girl. Now it's time to say goodbye. In the most sweet, comforting, loving way, tell her that you will not forget her. You will remember her. Anytime she needs to know you're around, you will be signaled by the feeling in your body or the knowledge and insight into your loneliness, and you'll do your best to protect her. Hug her, put your arms around her, and let her melt inside of you, where you become one and whole. and then sit for a while. And then I want you to watch the video that is in this video. And just savor the experience and give yourself a couple days to work through the emotions of it. If you have a friend, someone who's safe, talk to them about it. And if you have a therapist, hopefully that this whole exercise was done within the safe confines of therapy. So in conclusion, pathological loneliness does not have to be a curse for which there is no solution. You might not be able to escape the treachery and the traps and the danger of your narcissist or the threat of your narcissist should you leave. But you can do this part because you need it. You need to be whole. You need to be integrated. You need to be a part of that little girl's life as much as she needs to be a part of yours, and you no longer need to be disabled by the unnecessary amputation of a child's life from your adult conscious life. I hope this was helpful, and if you want more information about the HITCH method, I have a 6-hour audio and video seminar on it, as with the other information about my codependency cure or the stage program of my self-love recovery treatment program or my self-love recovery treatment program. Thank you, and be well.